In 1989, a number of methanol industry executives decided to form what was then known as the American Methanol Institute. They were driven by a desire to work with the U.S. Congress as it began debate in the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. The act would include provisions encouraging the use of alternative fuels and establish the reformulated gasoline program. Today, some 28 years later, the Methanol Institute is a truly global trade association with offices here in Washington, also in Singapore, Brussels, and Beijing. Many of our members are here today, representing the world's leading methanol producers, distributors, and technology companies.
Good morning. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the Methanol Institute for the opportunity to share some of our work here. For those of you who don't know us, we are a boutique consulting firm based in Houston. We've been around for about 9 years. We focus exclusively on oil and gas, energy, and chemicals. Within those market segments, we work across the value chain. So within oil and gas, for example, we do a lot of work on the upstream side, midstream, as well as downstream. The natural gas value chain is an area where we bring deep expertise. We've spent a lot of time on the upstream side looking at where all the gas is coming from, but we've followed the gas molecule through the value chain, and over the last 6-7 years, we've spent a lot of time trying to understand where all that gas is going to go. And that's an area that we tend to describe as, in our jargon, as gas monetization. And as part of that, we spend a lot of time trying to look at what kind of an impact will this availability of natural gas in North America have on the methanol industry. So very quickly today, what we're going to talk about is what does the availability of natural gas mean for the methanol industry, and second, what does the methanol industry mean in terms of impact on the U.S. economy in general. I think Greg put it very succinctly this morning that it's important to kind of frame the impact of the industry in terms of jobs, tax revenue, and overall economic impact, because those are words that resonate in this part of the country and have a pretty big impact in terms of how policy gets set and how that has an impact on the overall growth of the industry in general. So I'm hoping to leave you with 5 key messages today. Just at a high level, we'll talk a little bit about the diversity of applications for methanol. I think this is important because this is one reason why methanol as a gas monetization option, as an option to take natural gas and convert and do something with it is very attractive, is that diversity of applications. There's diversity not just in where methanol is used, but also in terms of the growth rates that people are seeing in terms of some of those applications. We'll do a very quick review of the new plant announcements around methanol that have stemmed essentially from the availability of natural gas. We'll talk at a high level about the impact a typical methanol plant has in terms of jobs, economic impact, tax revenue, and things like that. And then we'll take an aggregated picture of what the overall impact of these methanol plant announcements and this growth in methanol capacity in the U.S. is going to look like for the U.S. And then we'll wrap it all up with a look at some of the key states that are likely beneficiaries of some of this expansion in capacity. So just at a high level, if you take the various applications where of methanol, you'll see that there's a lot of diversity there. Unlike, let's say, some of the other things that you can use natural gas for, methanol offers a wide range of applications. You can take methanol for the traditional chemical feedstock applications like formaldehyde and other applications that methanol has been used for a long time. And then in addition to that, there's a very wide range of fragmented applications, whether it's used as for wastewater treatment or it's used for other solvent applications, both at the consumer level as well as the industrial level. So there's a pretty diverse range of applications where methanol can be used. That is interesting because that allows you, that diversity in application makes methanol a very attractive gas monetization option, especially if you look at the diversity by which natural gas is now available in North America across all the different shale plays. So essentially, you don't necessarily have to conceptually aggregate all of this gas, bring it to a central point, and build a large at-scale methanol plant. Conceptually, you can build small-scale methanol plants where small volumes of natural gas You can produce small volumes of methanol and still find local applications, local end users, local distributors who may be able to monetize these supplies. So I think that diversity is one factor that makes this interesting. And then, of course, this in no way diminishes or impacts the opportunity associated with large-scale methanol plants, because there are large applications that continue to grow, whether it is in the use of methanol as a potential fuel, either for automobiles or for marine vessels, given some of the new regulations that are coming on stream around sulfur reduction in marine fuels, or for other applications around, say, use of methanol as a feedstock to produce olefins and therefore insert itself into the petrochemical value chain. So we've heard the shale gas story many times, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. Just a couple of key points. You've seen the dramatic growth in shale gas production over the last few years. What a lot of people don't realize is that the production of natural gas is in many ways right now constrained by demand more than necessarily by supply. If you go to Marcellus and you talk to the operators there, they'll talk about how they've been able to cut costs by as much as 30 to 50% in some of the best operating areas that they have. So essentially, there's the opportunity to produce more shale gas, provided there is adequate demand. We've spent a lot of time trying to look at cost reductions in unconventional reservoirs across the US, and we find that the best reductions, even after the downturn, have happened in the Marcellus, which is the largest producer of shale gas here in North America. So there's much more runway associated with further cost reduction on the upstream side. And we've spent a lot of time trying to estimate how much natural gas is available out there that can be produced economically, and we think that about 1,400 to 1,500 trillion cubic feet of natural gas is available out there that can all be produced at less than $3 or $4 a million BTU. So what that means is if you take the gas demand that exists today and aggregate that over the next 30 years, there's enough gas demand, there's enough supply that you can supply all the gas demand over the next 30 years at less than $3 a million BTU. So for a lot of investors who are looking at new projects around gas monetization, what that means is that you can very safely assume that you'll have access to the natural gas feedstock at less than $3 a million BTU for pretty much the lifetime of the project at which you model your returns and NPV economics at. So this is clearly not, this is fairly obvious to the investor base, which is why we see the dramatic announcements around methanol capacity that have been made over the last few years. There's lots of plans that have been announced. We don't anticipate all of those plans to move forward, but we do anticipate some of these plans will come on stream and will have an impact on the overall capacity of the methanol industry in the U.S., essentially transforming it from a net importer to a net exporter. So just at a high level, when you take a typical methanol plant, it offers a wide range of economic impacts. We are assuming here a typical methanol plant of about 1.5 million tons per year. It's a capex spend of about a little over $1 billion, state and local taxes of around $35 million or so, annual natural gas consumption of about 45 billion cubic feet a day on an annualized basis. In terms of the jobs, essentially, clearly as there's a significant amount of construction jobs that are created, a lot of those construction jobs tend to be temporary, but the plant also creates a number of permanent jobs, close to 600, both direct and indirect. We can talk a little bit about some of the details associated with those, but the overall economic ripple effect is about $1.5 billion based on a typical methanol plant. So when you aggregate that across all the methanol plants that are anticipated to come on stream, it's a fairly significant impact. A lot of the permanent jobs that are created are fairly high-paying jobs, close to an annual average salary of $75,000 or so. So if you aggregate all of this across the industry and try to build an industry-wide view, what we are estimating is close to $12 billion in capex over starting from 2015 in terms of the methanol capacity expansions that have been announced or are anticipated to come on stream. Our analysis doesn't assume every single methanol plant is going to come on stream. So we've made some assumptions in terms of what's going to come on stream and what's unlikely. And collectively, the market, the overall size of the market, assuming that recent methanol prices prevail, is close to a little under $6 billion by the end of the decade. So again, pushing forward this aggregated view, if you take a look at construction jobs, which is the chart on the left, close to 19,000 construction jobs by the end of 2020 across all the various methanol plants. Direct and indirect jobs, when you aggregate them, close to 5,000 or so. So fairly sizable impact across the industry in terms of employment. Similar impacts that we see on the tax revenue side. There's some variability there, so essentially somewhere between $400 to $500 million in annual tax revenue through 2020. And we talked a little bit about the range of annual salaries for some of the direct jobs that are being created. In terms of the actual states that are likely to have an impact, again, we make some assumptions here based on what plants are moving forward and things like that. But really, the Gulf Coast is one of the big beneficiaries. Both Texas and Louisiana have pretty big, there's big impact of these expansions in both of those states. Louisiana clearly is where a lot of the recent capacity additions have been focused on. We anticipate similar benefits to Washington if some of the plant announcements there successfully move forward. So clearly across the board, there are opportunities to create fairly significant impact in some of the key states across the U.S. So with that, that's all that I had this morning to kind of set the context. Happy to participate in this discussion further. Thank you.